energy update for the 14th till the 20th of July. Here from Colorado, my name is Jona Bryndis, and as always, this recording is live here Thursday, 2 p.m. our time. Before we look into the next week, let's look at our last week first. All right, so I'm getting visited here, and we've all arrived home, I suppose. So this is kind of like the energy of this week, arriving home and arriving in our body, arriving in our safe zone. And I talked a little bit about comfort zone last time and warned you guys to not get too sleepy or too inactive. This is important now for the next couple of weeks, really, because we have to pay attention. And what's really the most important thing for us that we need here to get through this time with, say, a conscious awareness, all right, is understanding how our perception works. All right, our perception is not necessarily controlled by what we think it is. And so there's many different aspects to perception, and I announced last week I was going to talk about retrocausality and timelines and temporal perception, and I would like to get started here on the different levels of our perception. And I think this is a good sort of introductory lesson into energetic perception as well, because what most of us don't realize is that our ego's proclivity, our ego's tendency to take things for real has to do with how we see things and how we give it form. A very good example nowadays is these live videos. We wouldn't be watching these live videos here if there wasn't a lot of form to it. There's moving pictures and there's activity there, and this is what is really attracting us, because our ego likes form, and the faster it's moving and the more emotion it's creating, the better. So our perception of our reality is determined by, like, say, what we want to see and how we want to see it. So this whole talk about truth and reality and so forth, besides sort of the philosophical aspect of that, is really a matter of understanding how your perception works, and with it, your nervous system. And your nervous system, as you know, is very much in its core linked to our animalistic instincts. So it's based on fight, flight, and freeze. We all know this. I wrote a lot of articles about this in the past, and therefore is tied into our nervous system. The fight, flight, and freeze is tied into our autonomous nervous system, which means it's bypassing our brain. So it doesn't even have anything to do with how we see things or what we believe or what we think about something. We can, however, and this is what basically happens here through collective programming and collective conditioning, override some of our animalistic drives, such as killing somebody if we feel like they're like a threat to us. So most of us, the majority of us, I hope so, doesn't run around and tries to kill everybody. However, this is just an override that we have. It's a mental override. It comes from our mind and from our conditioned part of our emotion that tells us that it's really not good to kill others, and besides, it's also illegal. However, if we're truly honest with ourselves, our inner system, our core system, still operates on that level. So even though we can control our emotions and we can control our thoughts to a certain degree and our actions, our inner differentiation or our inner perception all right, of our environment is still based on very rudimentary discernment mechanisms. And so when it comes to perception and the different levels of perception, it's important to understand that we all of us have that animalistic part in us. It's part of our evolution of becoming a human, all right? And so to judge ourselves for that, or to judge ourselves for having, like, say, thoughts of revenge or road rage or sudden outbursts of emotions, is really kind of wasted energy, because it's right there in all of us. The question is, how does different levels of perception, how does that affect our inner processing, our inner computing? And this is where sort of our past, our physical, which is the autonomous nervous system, the emotional, and the mental, which is mostly determined by neurotransmitters. This is where the spiritual alignment comes in. The spiritual alignment then gives us sort of overriding priorities, which means, like, say, we see something that really threatens us, or that really disturbs us, or that really makes us angry, and yet it's not like a repression of our animalistic drives. There's an override that happens, and that's based on how we perceive the world and how we perceive our own values and virtues. And so moving into forgiveness, say, which is a big part of spiritual understanding. And when I say spiritual, again, don't mistake me here. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about a understanding that goes beyond the body, the emotion, and the mind. And the spiritual, therefore, has the ability to overrule this, but only when there are certain conditions there. And this is what I would like to talk to you about, because the conditions or the energetic conditions in which we find ourselves have a lot to do with how we perceive our world, how we perceive ourselves, and how we perceive others. And so if I am more or less bound in a fight, flight, or freeze way of thinking or perceiving the world, then it's you know, that I have a very high tendency, of course, to react based on that animalistic and sort of pre-programmed way. And this is really where this is now all happening here, this conscious or this evolution of human consciousness, is that there is a threshold that when we can cross this threshold due to aligning our awareness to something greater, to like, say, the infinite field that is out there, the infinite divine field, if you want to call it that way. But you can also just call it, you know, the universe. A lot of people call it the universe, which is a bit more neutral. As soon as you align your perception to something outside of you, something greater outside of you, then you begin to move from form into less form-bound, from content into context. You begin to see the overall context. You begin to see that all this erratic behavior, for instance, that we are being exposed to, especially these weeks, that this has to do with a certain limitation in perception in people. And you could actually go as far as saying that they have a different kind of brain. Everyone who sees the world and themselves and others based on dog eats dog, fight, flight, you know, you have to kill it, you have to conquer it, you have to be better, you have to... and this is a very archaic system that is implanted in us. And everyone who sees the world that way will, of course, have a certain set of markers, virtues, that determine their reality. So right now the reality is, for someone who is very much bound to their rudimentary perception of their nervous system, is looks like we're heading into a collapse. We're heading into something very threatening. There's a lot of fear of unknown. There's a lot of new things that are coming up right now that we don't understand. They're frightening to us because they make us feel uncertain. And so our natural reaction to that is that we try to fight it, that we try to resist it, or that we try to outperform it. All right. Someone who has a perception that is based on seeing the larger context can actually begin to see that in that new development, in that change that is happening in our world right now, be it on a political, environmental, economical, social level, with all its details, with all its different forms and shapes, is something that promotes evolution, is something that brings our entire collective forward. Why is that? Because we understand that everything arises out of its own conditions, and that the conditions that we find, they are the ones that are the most advantageous at a certain time for something larger, which I would call evolution, to happen. In other words, every condition that we find, even a seemingly negative condition, like say a disease or an accident or loss of money or loss of relationship or even the loss of a loved one, with exception here, can lead to a greater advancement, can lead to a quantum leap. And this is kind of like what I'm trying to get at here, is that if our reality really depends on how we contextualize what we are experiencing, then the question is, can we control the way we perceive things? And of course, can we actually do something about that? So is, for instance, as I brought up last week, the economical developments that are happening right now, is this something that should be frightening, or is this something that should be encouraging or even motivating for us? And the way we contextualize this has to do with how our perception works. So if I'm bound to fear, anger, pain, control, and specialness, which are the virtues, so to speak, of my ecosystem, okay, that is designed to keep me alive, to keep me safe, then this may all look a little bit of threatening. And this is why we are experiencing this heating up of emotions here right now, because when people are in that reactionary state, they're very much or their actions are very much based on adrenaline. They're very much based on instant reaction and sort of direct control of the situation. This is also why we see so much control struggle right now, not just in our personal lives or in businesses, but also on in the geopolitical arena. The biggest thing that is happening right now is the struggle for control, the struggle for power. So we are in the middle of a sort of shifting power battle here, and that happens as always on many different levels. It happens on the outer collective level, and some of you guys will know this, that there's a constant sort of battle of resonances going on, but it's also happening here on our global political level, on our national political level, and even within our families right now. So power struggle is sort of the last hurrah of a dying power system, and if you look at it this way, then of course you can see that this offers a wonderful opportunity for something greater, for something new, for something more beneficial to happen. All right, so why do things not always happen that way? Why is, the spiritual perception of just everything is going to be fine and don't worry and so forth, why does that not work out? Because it's not based on my hopes and wishes. It must be based on giving, like everything that I perceive the space to develop into a more advantageous direction on a long enough timeline. So, like, say if I have an accident today and I have to go to the hospital for a week and need to recover for 6 weeks, obviously for this period of 2 months, that's not a very nice experience. But down the road, this can maybe lead to finding the time to reflect, to introspect, and to find out that, man, maybe the job that I'm doing is not really what I want to do anyway. Maybe I'm not even able to do my job anymore when I come back, because whatever injury I have doesn't allow me to do this job, which wasn't really beneficial for me in the first place. So to a degree, I'm being forced in going into growth. I'm being forced in going into finding something new, and maybe on a timeline of, like, say 2 years or 10 years, this was the best thing that could happen to me. So understanding that our perception can be based on a very sort of finite, very particular aspect only, which can limit our perception, or that it can be based on a seeing the larger context, which is more open and which allows for a growth that we cannot even imagine to happen. That then leads us to the insight that maybe things are not the way we perceive them, or maybe they're not always the way we perceive them. And that's when we have to go in and ask ourselves, well, then what are our priorities? What are our values? What are our virtues? So here's a question. Most devastating dark nights of the soul have always inspired more positive outcomes once I've gotten past my grieving. New growth, like how a forest fire leads to new beginnings. And that's a very beautiful analogy. Of course, there's a part in us that hopes that it doesn't have to end up in a forest fire here, our consciousness evolution. But I'm certain that there will be a lot of things that are not going to be the same they used to be, which means that no matter how spiritually evolved we are, we're going to see some of this as a threat, as a challenge for our comfort zone. And this is now here where the spiritual perception can even be developed a step further. We call this energetic perception. So energetic perception goes into our deepest way of observing our own emotions, our own thoughts, and our perception. So energetic perception now, and this is something new for most of you, and you've heard me talk about this many times here at TRANSCODES, is something that can be trained. It's sort of our seventh sense. And that sense is able to discern between what's advantageous and what is not. Our mind is not able to discern truth. It is bound to, the perception is bound to our neurotransmitters, it's bound to our beliefs. So it has a natural limitation, and some people more limited than others. But still, though, the perception that we sort of think we have through our mind only is very limited compared to the kind of perception that we can develop if we would use our intuition, if we would use our inner guidance, our intuitive knowing. Our intuitive knowing is linked into the infinite field of consciousness, to the universe, which means that it gets glimpses of the probably the greatest perception or perspective that you can take on, which is the overall evolutionary forward movement, which means that if we can develop ways to tap into our energetic perception, which is not based on our belief, on our sex, on our ethnic group, on our geographic location, it is not bound to anything other than our ability to move within, to sort of turn off the mind, turn off the emotions, and turn off some of our physical hardwires our autonomous nervous system. And I'm sure you've heard this before. There's people who can change their heart rate, who can change their breath, the frequency of breath, who can change their metabolism through meditation. So I'm not really suggesting to go into the extreme here and become a sun breather or someone who neglects their physical based on that. All you really need is that kind of control. That's a spiritual trap, because it leads us into trying to control our system too much and does not allow really for the openness and the guidance that we can gain through our heart. Not that it excludes it, but it creates a wrong picture of energetic perception, and that is that we have to turn off sort of our entire existence, and that is not the case. On the contrary, through energetic perception, we actually learn to bring in all these different channels of information processing together. So we learn how to read our body signals, our emotional signals, our thoughts, our beliefs, and our inner intuition, our inner mind's eye, if you will, our third eye, as most of you call it. We learn how to merge all that and to become one as an energetic being. In fact, to actually begin to see ourselves as an energetic being that includes the physical, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, and the energetic. And so if we go in and really pay attention to our energetic perception, and yes, part of that has to do with our gut feeling, but it's even beyond that. There is a way that you can train your system to really read your inner signals and build a lexicon of inner sensations. And most of you know this here at TRANSCODES. We spend a lot of time in public sessions, individual sessions, and energy coaching in training people how to do this. And there is a much greater intelligence at work here than you think it is, that allows us to tap into this. And I can say probably here with 100% certainty that everyone in the past 10 years who said to me, I cannot see things, I cannot see energies, I cannot feel things, has learned how to read their own energies, how to determine what sort of their precognitive abilities are, and how to discern truth. This is, of course, a process that you can't just learn in a weekend. This is a longer process, and many of you have already done a lot of work on this. But I want to remind you that I'm not really talking about altered states of consciousness here. I'm talking about the perception that combines all our sensory channels, which means it is not just your metaphysical or chemical knowledge. It is not just your psychological knowledge. It is not just your physical knowledge. It is all of it together. And that's when something really amazing happens. And so my tip here for the coming weeks, steering into a time where emotions, collective emotions, are continually building and continually escalating to a point where there will be a lot of people talking about the system end is near or something like that. You will need this kind of perception, but also for these increased levels of energy that are coming in. And we all know this today. We are literally in the conditions that we're forced to evolve our consciousness with the amount of energy and the amount of information that is bombarding us day in, day out. If you compare this to, like, say, a lifestyle from like 150 or 200 years ago, you know, where the only information that you really had was the one that came from your parents or that came through your neighbors. We have constant bombardment of information, and with this constant bombardment of information, also constant bombardment of outer energies. And this has to do with the technological advancements that we have. So the conditions right now are forcing us to develop more differentiated decision-making, more differentiated discernment. And this is why I think these are like really, really exciting times. Because never before in the human history have we been in this situation that we are literally born into an environment that is so bombarding that if we don't learn how to harness our own energies, where we perceive suffering that people have never perceived before. And when I talk about suffering, I'm talking about the typical issues that energetically sensitive, highly sensitive persons and empaths have. Why do you think there's so many articles and so much talk about all these different things, like how, you know, the ascension symptoms or the empath narcissist issues and so forth that are arising? It is because the bombardment is so strong now that people are literally at a point in their development where they have to make a choice. And that's why I have been talking for years about this place in our time where we begin to split as a collective, and I'm seeing this happening now. I'm seeing this happening right now, as a matter of fact. The key word here is bifurcation. And bifurcation is something, you know, that really just describes in something sort of, it comes to a place on a pathway where you have to choose your pathway and where there is more or less no way back, because depending on the pathway that you're taking, you're changing your reality. And this is what is happening right now, which means that be it through outer conditions or inner conditions that are arising out of the, say, larger outer conditions, we are being forced to make a choice here. And this choice is from an energetic standpoint. I'm not talking spiritual here, I'm talking energetic standpoint, is a positive development, because it will force us into a place where we remember and recover our full potential here in our human consciousness. We've always had it. Consciousness doesn't really develop. You know, this field that we are trapped in when we sort of let go of our ego, let go of our mind and our emotion and so forth, is always there. It's just completely sort of clogged with all those animalistic things that we have in us, with self-gain, narcissism, and so forth. I mean, there's nothing wrong with narcissism, really. It's at the core of all our egos. But when it comes down to increasing our perception and developing our consciousness, what we're really looking at is transcending our ego. Because the ego is what keeps us in those lower vibratory places. It keeps us in our autonomous nervous system. It keeps us in our reptilian brain. And so all of you who are working on their ascension or their spiritual advancement or their energetic advancement, right, you need to understand that this is a choice. Because due to the choice, you are determining your alignment. And with your alignment, you are determining your perception. And again here, I just want to do the side note that this has nothing to do with altered states of perception. Altered states of perception through, like, say, substances or certain practices can only provide this to us temporarily. And yes, sometimes it can kickstart this journey for a person. It can show a person what sort of what's out there, all right, in good and bad ways. But the whole trick here about learning energetic perceptivity, or learning how to harness our energetic perceptivity, is that we got to understand that these are skills we all have. And that's really just about turning the volume of our ego down so that the volume of our inner perception can go up. And that one is the one that can actually provide us with the ability to discern truth, to know when someone is lying or not, to know when someone is integrous or not, to know if a choice that I want to make, a decision that I want to make right now, if this is advantageous for me or not. Can you imagine what your life would be like if you could do this at all times? You can. You just got to turn the volume of all the other crap that we've been conditioned to. You just got to learn how to turn that down. And meditation and some of other sort of disciplinary techniques like martial arts, like Tai Chi, Qigong, you know, any type of disciplines that help you to silence your mind and to silence your emotions, and also to harness your physical power. Those will all help you to tune into your energetic perceptivity. Then you just got to learn a few techniques, a few skills, you know, like learning a new alphabet, you know, how to work this for yourself. But having worked with thousands of people here over the last 10 years and teaching them how to do this, I can tell you that there is a whole new world, a whole new reality out there waiting for you to be discovered. And that is not one that requires you to go out. You don't have to travel for that. You don't have to go anywhere. You just have to learn how to harness these energetic skills within yourself. And this can be done like we do it here at TRANSCODES through remote energy, through distance healing. It's no woo-woo anymore, and I'm not going to explain this here today, but I just want to let you know that these techniques are real, and that they can be reproduced, and people can protocol them, they can examine them, and we do this all openly here, publicly at TRANSCODES. Have a forum community tied to it that teaches and shares and discusses all that. And let me tell you, there is things that you or your ego, say, your ego perception would have never expected. So this is sort of my motivational speak of the day here, to go into looking sort of past what your ego can see. All right, and it so happens, of course, that we have a big intensive coming up this weekend. So if you, like a beginner, and you feel very uncomfortable with learning about energies, and you feel like you can't really tune into all this, then check out TRANSCODES and see what we have there for you. We start on Friday night through Saturday and Sunday with recorded teaching, remote energy teachings that help you to tune into this, and you're going to be guided and coached the entire time. So this is for the advertisement here, but where I really wanted to get with this was our perception of time, and how we, or our ego, better say, thinks that we are being really sort of driven forward by the decisions that we make. And so coming back to, you know, realities and the perception of reality, you can see now that our decision-making process is much more complex than we think it is. Our mind makes us believe that we are making decisions based on objectivity, on logic, and so forth. But the truth is, and this is has been researched a lot, there's a lot of studies out that show this, that 85% of our decision-making process has nothing to do with logic. It's nothing to do with our left brain. It has to do with our emotions, and also with our right brain. And here now I'm coming in saying, you know, the way you perceive your life, and then the way your life plays out, your manifestation, has nothing to do really with your decision making. It has to do with your perception. And if you just shift your perception from thinking that it is your decisions that would do anything, to really looking into this this larger context that I mentioned earlier, the infinite field or universal field of consciousness, then you will find out that there is actually something much greater at work, and that is something that pulls us into our future. In other words, it is not our past that decides where we're going to go in the future. It's actually our present. And this, again, here underlines the importance of understanding the limitations of your perception and learning how to overcome this. Because if my future is determined in the moment right now, then my future depends on how I see myself right now. And how I see myself right now, again, is determined by my alignment. And my alignment is not my wishful thinking, or, we're all going to get rescued, or we're the chosen ones, or any of these spiritual concepts that are floating around there. They're all misleading, guys. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that if you can allow your highest potential to pull you into its predestined sort of optimal pathway, you don't really need to worry so much about your decisions. All you got to do is be tuned in to your presence, to be present in your heart at all times, and to have your online truth detector going, and know bullshit from integrity, and know what is advantageous for you or what is not supportive for your energy at all times, regardless of your logic. It doesn't mean that you can't merge your logic into this. And of course, as a good sort of conditioned person here from I have a very strong mental training. I love it when my decisions that come from my heart end up actually also being the most logical ones. But the reason why, for me, a lot of my decisions that are heart-based, and when I say heart-based, I don't mean based on my emotions, I mean based on my inner gut feeling, on my intuitive knowing. What happens over time when you make decisions based on that is that your logic, your reality, that sort of merged subjectivity and objectivity becomes one. And so for me today, every decision that I make has a sort of a left brain processing. All right, so there's an observer part of me that looks at the objectivity of things and whether this is at all feasible. But then there's a part of me which comes from the higher perception that I have, and that evaluates things based on how it energetically feels to me. Does it feel energetically supportive, or does it feel energetically degrading? And that's sort of like what I'm trying to teach here within all these different modalities that we offer for training. We also offer a lot of healing modalities, but even those we teach in a way that a person can learn how to do them, how to apply them themselves. So what does this have to do with our current collective energies? Oh well, things are heating up, and you'll see a lot of people being caught in their sort of adrenal reactivity state, and even more so when they go into acute fear and pain. So what I'm asking you to do is really to go in and connect with this observer part of you more, so that you can be the rock and the shore, so that you can stay calm and that you can see a little further than the majority of people around you. And you don't have to have solutions. That's the cool part about retrocausality. See, if you, let go, if you can surrender your ego's attachment that it is my decision that made that happen, if you can let that go and let go of the credits the ego wants to take for your manifestations, and if you can go into this place and really just take it moment by moment, what is most advantageous for you. When I say advantageous here, again, this has nothing to do with self-gain. I mean advantageous for your energy and for the people around you, for your entire environment, all right? If you can let go of needing to have that validation and approval that it is you making those decisions, then you can actually lean back, and you can perceive inner peace in times of chaos and outer upheaval. It also makes you etherically safer, and this is something I'll talk about next time. etheric protection, because as most of you know, I've written many articles about etheric protection and how the mechanics are and the dynamics of energetic interaction and so forth. This is all stuff that becomes very interesting for people once they begin to tune into their higher vibratory perception. All right, so we're going to talk about etheric protection next time. Here this week, I want to talk about why we need this, why we need to reconnect with this higher perception, because things are so emotional right now, and this will continue for probably the next 3-4 weeks. All right, so the most affected energy centers in the next week will be once more our first chakra, our root chakra, which is located at the base of your spine. Our third chakra, you've been feeling this already for the last week. Very strong problems here in the sternum area and the rib cage area. This whole sort of apparatus, like right here, even I can feel my clavicles as well. And our sixth chakra, our third eye, okay? Our third eye really needs to go with these energetic waves that are coming in right now, or else you're going to have probably lots of migraine pain, lots of issues with your eyes, maybe another round of sinusitis, another round of nasal congestion or cold coming on. All right, because this is the main energy that's coming in next week, and that's why I talked so much about perception. All right, so is this something that everybody can do? Absolutely. What am I recommending on a practical level? This combination of first, third, and sixth chakra is something that requires us to go a little beyond just our sort of spiritual stuff, okay? We got to get back into our physical, and that's why I asked everybody last week to get into movement, into action, all right? You got to move your body. I strongly, strongly recommend to go into moving, stretching, and if you do not have a regular exercise routine, then start something new, okay? Experiment. Try to find something that can motivate you. You got to get your body involved, because your body is the one where that is determined by your autonomous nervous system. And if your adrenaline gets clogged up in your system, you're just going to get overloaded, and you're just going to be like really, really tired and not be able to do anything. All right. The third chakra aspect is the ego aspect that we talked about, and you know, challenging your ego a little bit is usually a good thing to observe how much power it actually has. All right. So my suggestion for next week is, while you know we're moving towards implementation, towards expression of who we truly are, I want to challenge you and ask you to really watch how many times you still have those underlying thoughts of dog eats dog, or wanting approval, or wanting to be better, or wanting to shine, wanting to like outperform everybody else. I don't want you to feel guilty about it. I want you to simply note how many times a day this implant, this conditioning can determine the way you see your world and yourself. And of course, practically spoken, working with our inner perception, really listening to our inner guidance, working on opening our third eye. Come to our energetic perception weekend if you have the resources, if you have the time. It doesn't matter where in the world you're located, you're doing this from home. But you can also just have the intention of spending more time in silence, spending more time in non-busyness. And even if you don't know yet how to effectively meditate, to just go into this place of like, okay, I'm giving myself here 30 minutes, 45 minutes to just go silent and to not listen to all this rah-rah that is going on around me, to turn off my phone, you know, and to just really go into like you and your energies and what your energetic perceptions are telling you. How does this feel? How do I truly feel about what is happening right now? So this is how you get this kick started in you. And the more you begin to listen to your inner guidance, the more clear and the more, direct it's going to come to you. All right. In the beginning, it requires a little bit of disciplining your mind and disciplining, your desires, your neediness, and all that. All right. But if you do this long enough, it will become a way of living, a way of being. And this is sort of the ultimate, or let's say the highest spiritual goal that we can actually have, and that is to become whatever it is that we align ourselves to. It's not our deeds that make us, divine, that make us spiritually evolved. Is what we are becoming as persons. And in that, we are all become healing for everyone around us and the entire collective. So this is kind of like what we're being forced into right now. All right, and we take that chance and go with our inner knowing, or we dismiss it and stay in our ego perception, and you will see that our entire collective here will split, and we'll have people here that at this point still make the majority. It's roughly 80% of all people who will see the world collapsing, and you'll see 20% who are able to connect with the larger context and who can feel how we're being pulled into a more advantageous future, that see this as a wonderful opportunity. And there's different things that we can do on the way. I mentioned a few things last week to support all that, but my tip for you, if you are in the awareness that your consciousness wants to evolve, is go for it. All right? It doesn't make you special. It doesn't make you chosen. It just makes you someone who is reading the signs of the times and who is trusting in that sort of greater infinite field that is pulling you into higher vibratory levels of existence. So with these words, I would like to conclude our live broadcast here today. Didn't get any questions, that's all right. So you know that you can ask questions here in the commentary, and also in the YouTube commentary. Please do so, all right? I know that I'm only bringing up little snippets here, and you'd have to like maybe read or ask a few things to get a deeper insight to it. But know that there's various levels of depth available here through me live, through answering your questions, or through going on my website, www.transcodes.com. All right, I'm looking forward to your questions. And before I forget, don't miss out on our forum community. Okay, TRANSCODES has a huge forum of people who are interested in this kind of stuff, and you may actually be surprised how deep those discussions go there. After every session, we have session reports, and we discuss the findings and the energetic sensations, perceptions that come forward. So if you're curious what it's like to do this kind of training work, then check out our forum community. And one big announcement on our equinox, are coming up equinox at 20th September till 22nd. We have our only live in-person event here in Evergreen, Colorado, September 20th till 22nd. It's called Adapting or Integrating Higher Levels of Energy, and this is a 3-day workshop in person here with myself and Jeff, teaching you how to integrate all these energy work techniques and energetic perceptivity that we talk so much about. So check this out, all right? I'd love to see you here in Evergreen or in one of our ongoing remote energy intensives. Thank you for your attention. All the best. Bye-bye.